Today's main topic is remainder and factor theorem. So today is all about dividing and finding remainders. So let's just quickly on the screen here, I just want to show you a concept that you may have taken for granted on when you were in primary school. Remember when you were in primary school, and let's say you had to divide 7 and you were dividing it by 2. We all know 2 into 7 is how much? The most it could go into it without leaving a remainder is 3 times. So you would say 2 into 7, and that will give you what? 3. But we all know 2 cannot go into 7 without leaving what? A remainder. So how would you get the remainder? You would take the answer on top and multiply it by the 2. So 3 by 2 is what? 6. And to get the remainder, I'll put R for remainder here, you would subtract these two values. 7 minus 6 is 1. A real basic concept that's easy to grasp when it's numbers. But what about when you start to introduce letters? Now, this procedure is very, very useful in maths for a very simple reason. I'm going to put 2 arrows, call it arrow 1, and I'll call it arrow 2. So when you take 7 and divide it by 2 on top of the divide sign, we get 3. Which one of these values is a simpler value? Is between 3 and 7, which one is the simpler value? Obviously 3, because 3 is smaller than 7. The point is, right, when you divide something by something, in this case here, you are dividing 7 by 2, you always end up with something simpler. And that's good in maths because nobody here likes complex equations. Nobody here likes complex situations. We would prefer to be dealing with simpler stuff, right? We like an easy life. And that is the majority of what we're going to be trying to do today. We're going to take something complex, divide it, and we're going to end up with something simpler. So I like to think of this topic, remainder and factor theorem, as making math situations simpler. All right. So moving down now, this was one of the questions for homework. Well, not for homework. Well, one of the questions you found in the homework videos. I would like you all, right, just as a little test run to see who did the homework, who didn't do the homework, and what, and everybody has to respond at some point, right? I'm going to try to figure out who didn't do it here now. I want you all to divide this by the yellow value, and you will get something on top. Take a 5 minutes, get the answer on top, and send it on the chat. Right? So when we're dividing this, right, and you have the x plus 2, you pay attention to the x, obviously. So what you're going to say is, you're going to divide x cubed by x. So x cubed divided by x is x squared. All right. Remember, whatever you get here, you will have to multiply it by both items here. X squared by x is x to the power 3, and x squared by positive 2 is 2x squared. What do we have to do with this region here? Do we have to add this region, or do we have to subtract this region? Subtract, right? Now, I believe I said in the videos, right, that when you are, now we have two items on top here and two items directly below those two items. We are going to subtract them, just like in the homework. But I think I had said that even though we plan to minus it, right? A lot of textbooks will just write one minus sign. So the minus sign would apply to these two, and the minus sign would apply to those two. But I would rather you write two minus signs, because when it's quite on this side, your brain will only associate it with these two, and you may forget that you have to minus those two. So let's minus those values now, right? Let's see. Remember I said when you minus the first two, x cubed minus x cubed, you are supposed to get 0. That if you get 0 over here for the first subtraction, you are on the right track, right? But you don't have to write the 0. You just keep it in the back of your head. Now you have to say 5x squared minus positive 2x squared. A minus and a plus is a minus, right? So you end up with 5x squared minus 2x squared. And when we do that, we are going to get 3x squared. And who joins the party now? Mr. 7x. We have to continue now. We're going to take the 3x squared and divide it by x again. So 3x squared divided by x is positive 3x. That orange value on top, we have to multiply by both items. 3x by x is what? 3x squared, right? Right, it kind of bad there, but that's a 3. And 3x by 2 is 6x. And once again, we have to minus both of them. So I write two minus signs. When you minus these two, you're going to get 0. So I know I'm on the right track. Then you say 7x minus positive 6x. So a minus and a plus is a minus. 7 minus 6 is 1x. Right? You don't have to write the 1 if you don't want to, but you could. And who joins the party now? Finally, Mr. Positive 2. 1x divided by x will give you, let me use a different color here, I'll use pink. You'll get positive 1. Take the 1 multiplied by everyone. 1 by x is 1x, and 1 by 2 is 2. When we minus all of them, we get 0 for our final answer, right? So it just so happens. Now, down here is your remainder. Now, your remainder doesn't always have to be 0. It just so happens today we got 0. So this is the answer I was asking for, the x squared plus 3x plus 1. Every time you get the remainder equal to 0, it means that whatever you were dividing by is a factor. And remember in maths, what is a factor? A factor is something that can go into something without leaving a remainder. So whenever you divide, if you get 0, you can say the x plus 2 in today's case is a factor. If you did not get 0 at the end, like you get 2, 3, minus 1, something that is not 0, then whatever I have in this yellow, that pink circle is not a factor. All right. Now, quick question, right? Since x plus 2 is a factor, you cannot mix up these two terms, factors and solutions. In the homework, I had went through the difference between the two. The factor is x plus 2. The reason is it gave a remainder of 0. Who can tell me what the solution is? Because the solution and the factor are slightly different. What is the solution? Right, so Alex correct, Saran correct. No, the top is not the solution, right? The top is not the solution, right? The difference between the factor and the solution, to get the solution, you have to take the factor, but you have to make sure that you got 0 out of it, and put it equal to 0. And then you simply solve for x. When you throw across positive 2, you get what? Minus 2. All right? So the solution is minus 2. The factor is this guy. And you have to know the difference, because in the exam, if they ask you for the solution and you put a factor by mistake, you might say the examiner is going to cut you some slack, right? No, you will get 0 marks at that point, right? So take a minute, take down everything you need on the. To find the remainder, which is at the bottom of the screen over here, you can go through this long division process. But remember, in the homework, there was a shortcut to finding what? The remainder. All you have to do is take what you are dividing by. In this case here, it's x plus what? 2. You put it equal to 0 and you solve for x. And of course, if you do that, you get minus 2. You just throw across the positive 2 to get minus 2. To get the same answer for the remainder, you go to the equation, the item in white, and you replace all the x's you see with minus 2 in brackets. But let's see if that actually works. Right now, I have to clear a little bit of space here, obviously, for the working. And let's just see if we get 0. So we go to this equation, and anywhere we see an x, throw it away and replace it with minus 2. But do it in brackets. Throw away this x, replace it with minus 2. Don't forget the cube. Plus 5. This x, throw it away, replace it with minus 2. Remember, the squared only belongs to the x value. It does not belong to the 5. Plus 7. Throw away this x, replace it with minus 2. I want everyone to work this out on their calculator and tell me if you really, really get back 0. Whenever you have a minus sign in brackets, you have to use this minus, not the regular minus. You have to use the plus or minus button. So open brackets, -2, close brackets. My calculators put an extra pair of brackets, but I have to make sure I press the Q button. Plus 5, open brackets, -2, close brackets, squared, plus 7, open brackets, -2, close brackets, plus 2. And let me press equal and see what happens. I get exactly 0. So it's a shortcut to finding what? The remainder. It is really a shortcut, right? But there's a disadvantage. If you were to use the shortcut method and you got the same answer for the remainder, would you get this expression on top? What do you all think? If you use the shortcut method, right, the answer is no. You are not going to get the expression on top. And sometimes you have to read, it takes a little while to go through the CXC questions, and it takes a little while to know whether the shortcut method will do for the question, or do we need to do it the long way? Sometimes the top part could be very, very useful. Of course, when we start the past paper questions, you're going to get a good gauge of which method to use. All right, so scrolling down now, and let's quickly do another question, right? Right. I want you to quickly do this one, right? Doing a little practice here. Find the remainder 2 ways. So you're doing it the long way, and then you're doing the shortcut way, and make sure in both instances you get the same answer for the remainder, right? I know some people are saying, but you can already do this. Doing it is one thing, but being able to do it quickly is a totally different, how you say, concept, right? So even though if you can do it, challenge yourself now. See if you can get it out in underneath 2 minutes, both of them. Right? So you're dividing the 2x cubed by x. You will get 2x squared. Take the 2x squared multiplied by both of them. So 2x squared by x is 2x cubed. 2x squared by minus 3 is minus 6x squared. I gotta be super, super careful with these signs. Now, we have to minus these these 4 items here. Put one minus sign in between two of them and also put one minus sign there. So that way your brain doesn't forget. When you minus these two, you're obviously going to get 0. That's a thumbs up. It means you're on the right track. Then you say 3x squared minus 2 minus are going to give you a positive. So 3 plus 6 is 9. So you get 9x squared. Who joins the party now? Minus 17x. So let's see what happens here. Use purple. 9x squared divided by x is positive 9x. You have to make sure and put your positive sign in between here, right? 9x multiplied by both of them. 9x by x is 9x squared. 9x by minus 3 is minus 27x. What do you need to do? Put a minus sign here, put a minus sign there. When you minus the first two, you're going to get 0. Once again, there's a thumbs up. You're moving in the right direction. Minus 17 plus, because 2 minus signs will touch here. So minus 17 plus 27, right? I need my calculator for that one. Minus 17 plus 27 is positive 10x. Who joins the party now? Mr. Minus 30. You notice I'm not forgetting the signs. Huh? This minus sign belongs to the 30. So that's this minus sign here. Divide it one more time. 10x divided by x is positive what? 10. 10 by 3 is, 10 by x is 10x. 10 by minus 3 is minus 30. Put a minus sign, put a minus sign. And it just so happens when you work out this, you're going to get 0. So the remainder, I'll put REM for remainder, is 0. Is it okay to say x minus 3 is a factor? Is it okay to say that? What do you all think? Yes, this is a factor because factors, when you divide by them, the remainder will always be 0. Right? Now there's a shortcut to finding x's, the remainder is 0. All you have to do is take the whatever you are dividing by, put it equal to 0 and solve for x. Today we're lucky when we solve for x, we get a nice positive number, 3. Go and replace all the x's with what? 3. So you'll get 2 cubed plus 3. And I guarantee you, when you work that out, you are going to get 0. The same thing over here. But confirm it, and then we will move on. This question on this, right? Now, keep your eyes on this top item. That's going to play a very important part. So far, we haven't utilized the top answer. We're just getting it, and we're not doing anything with it, okay? All right. This one here, I just want you to use the shortcut method. Get the remainder using the shortcut method, right? And let me show you what would have been the trick in this question. Usually when they give you a question like this, right? Say you were dividing x cubed minus x squared minus 1. You'll notice something missing here. When you're dividing and you start with x cubed, you have to go down in powers of 1. it have a x squared, but you all notice regular boring x is missing. Whenever you're doing that, you have to put 0x whenever you're dividing it the long way. All right? Or otherwise, when you try to divide it, the question will shut down. You won't be able to do anything, right? So, but anyway, I'm asking you to do it the short way. Go and replace all the x's with a certain value. See if you can remember what the value is. Could have been me. So if you want to find the remainder using a shortcut method, you take whatever you are dividing by, which is x plus 2, put it equal to 0 and solve for x. Draw across positive 2, well, you get minus 2. All you have to do is go to this equation now, and anywhere you see the x, you throw it away, and in brackets, you replace it, right? And I think a lot of, not a lot of people, some people are just forgetting the brackets. Now the 0x really doesn't matter because anything by 0 is 0, but I'll still put it in. And when you're typing in this on your calculator, you have to make real sure you type it in just like this. Some students have the habit of just leaving out brackets, not realizing how important it is. So 2 open brackets, you have to use this minus sign, minus 2, close brackets, cube. This minus sign is in between, so you're using a regular boring minus sign. Opening my brackets now, I'm using the funny button here, minus 2, close brackets, squared. I'm not even going to bother to put this part, right? Because we know anything by 0 is 0. So I'm not going to waste my time. And then put minus 1. And I'm getting minus, the remainder is minus 21. What did I write wrong on the screen there? What did I write wrong? I did something I should not have done. What is it? Kenya, correct. Anybody else saw the slight mistake I made? Right, Alia, correct. Aruna, correct. No answer. That is not the mistake. Right, Nathaniel, correct. I'll take one more. Right, Kristen and Christian, correct. The thing about it, when we divide it by this, my remainder is correct. My remainder is minus 21. The point is, this is not 0. I am only allowed to call the x plus 2 a factor if the remainder is 0. He is not qualified to be called a factor. In fact, he is not a factor, the opposite of a factor. Okay, so yeah, you gotta be real careful with the terms you're using over here. All right, so let's move on to the next question, right? Right. Now, this one here is a little bit harder, right? Because we're gonna do it 2 ways. You notice in all the other questions, when you were dividing, it was just x. Even if we go up here, it's just x. When we go up here, it's just x. For some reason, when it's not x and it's 2x, it just gives a little bit more problems. Try it, find the remainder the long way, and then we're going to do it the shortcut way. Right? Who is right? Now, the only difference is here, we're dividing by 2x. So, you know what I'm going to do on the side here? I'll just show you how to quickly do it, right? If you're taking the 2x cubed, which is this, and you divide it by 2x, right? The 2 and the 2 will cancel out, and the x into this is x squared. So you're going to be left with what? X squared. You have to take this x squared now, and of course, multiply by everyone. X squared by 2x is 2x cubed. X squared by 1 is just positive 1x squared. Obviously, once again, you don't have to put the 1. From here now, right, you have to put the two minus signs. And look again, look at it. These two, we got zeros. Nice thumbs up. We're on the right track. Now we have minus x squared minus and a plus. A minus and a plus is a minus. Minus x squared minus another x squared is minus 2x squared. I suspect some people put 0 here by mistake. You say minus x squared plus 1x squared, and you overlooked the minus sign in the middle. That is one of the mistakes I think a few people made. What's going to happen here now? The positive 4x is going to come down. Let's do this division over here. We have minus 2x squared, and we are going to divide it by 2x. 2 and 2 will cancel out. X and the squared will cancel out. So you're left with minus x. Minus x by 2x is minus 2x squared. Minus x by positive 1 is minus 1x. We have to put the minus signs in between. When you minus these two, you will get 0 because a minus and a minus is a plus. 4x minus minus 1, that's 5x. And who joins the party now? Positive 2. Right. Now over here, there was a slight mistake. There's 5x. I mean, a slight mistake by a few students. You're taking the 5x and dividing it by 2x. The x and the x will cancel out. And 5 divided by 2 is 5 on 2, or 2.5. The fraction may have thrown off, or the decimal may have thrown off some people. Because when you're dividing, most of the times, in all the examples so far, we got whole numbers, but no decimals. I'm here to tell you, sometimes you get decimals. Nothing is wrong with that. 2.5 by 2x is 5x. 2.5 by 1, well, anything by 1 is itself. Put the minus signs, and let's see who's correct now. 5x minus 5x is 0, but 2 minus 2.5 is minus 0.5, or minus a half. For the people who got minus a half and not positive a half, you all had it correct, right? Is it fair to call this a factor? What do you all think? Factor or no factor? Not a factor, right? Doing the shortcut method now, here's the difference, right? When you're doing it the shortcut method, you take what you are dividing by, you're putting it equal to 0. But you have to solve for x. When you're solving for x, you're throwing across the positive 1, you'll get minus 1. But remember, the 2 is a multiply. You're going to get what? A divide. Minus 1 divided by 2 is minus 0.5. So what you have to do now is go and replace all the x's here with minus 0.5, work it out, and I bet you'll get back minus a half. But confirm it. And for those who got everything correct, like you did it both ways, congrats, and just relax for a minute. All right. So the next question now is to try to solve one of these questions now. Let me explain the slight difference. Well, not the slight difference, the big difference. If I were to give you this to solve, x squared minus 5x plus 7, right? That is clearly a quadratic. Now, if you were to solve a quadratic, and we know it's a quadratic because it has x squared, a regular boring x, and something without an x, okay? There's a very easy way to solve quadratics, right? You just use this formula. You all know the scary looking formula from before, okay? Right. Is this a quadratic here? This thing underneath here, if I ask you to solve 2x cubed plus 3x squared, that is not a quadratic at all, okay? That is not a quadratic at all. This is what I just call it a cubedratic because of the cube, but that's not its real name, right? The real name for this, I believe, is a third order polynomial, but we'll give it a nickname, cubedratics, okay? Right. So obviously, since it's I'm going to keep using this term, a cubedratic, there is actually a formula to solve a cubedratic. But if you all ever get time, you can research that formula, but it's one of the scariest looking formulas you will ever see in maths. Obviously, we're not going to use that scary looking formula. Instead, there's a procedure we can use to solve a cubedratic, and it involves some guessing, unfortunately. So it has some guessing in it. So what you need to do is guess a value of x, and usually it's either be 1 or -1 or 2 or -2 or 3 or what, -3 or 4 or -4, right? I want you all to start guessing. Try 1. Go and replace all the x's with 1. Work it out and tell me if you get 0. You're trying to guess a value of x that will make it equal to 0. So everyone try 1, and if 1 doesn't work, try -1, then try 2, then -2, then 3, and then -3. And unfortunately, in the exam, it has to go on like this. The guessing thing just, how you say, it sends the students crazy because it's almost like wasting time in the exam, right? So we're test running 1. So let's work out this. 1 cube is 1, 1 by 2 is 2. 1 squared is 1, 1 by 3 is 3. 3 by 1 is -3 -2. When we work this out, we will definitely get what? 0, right? Which is good, right? Our first guess happens to work, and in the exam when that happens, count it as a blessing, right? So since x gives us 0, our first solution is, our first solution is x is equal to 1. A solution is a value of x that will make the entire expression equal to 0. And unfortunately, you will always have to try to guess the first one. Okay? Now, here's what we have to do now. Since x is a solution, we have to change it into a factor. To change the solution into a factor, you always put the letter x outside. And whatever is the solution, you put the opposite next to it. So if the first solution is x is equal to +1, then the first factor is x -1. All right? So what you have to do now, right? This is definitely a factor. You can always take a solution and make it into a factor. Divide this. And if this is truly a factor, you will get 0. But more importantly, you will get a quadratic on top. And remember what I said at the beginning of class. When you divide something by something, the answer you get will always be simpler. And a quadratic is definitely simpler than a cubedratic. And once we get the quadratic, we know how to solve a quadratic. And we'll get the other two solutions from that point. So get started. All right. So 2x cubed divided by x is 2x squared. 2x squared by x is 2x cubed. 2x squared by -1 is -2x squared. Remember, you have to make sure that you put two minus signs, right? Remember, I tell you how your brain is work, right? If something is too far away, your brain is going to ignore it. So put two distinctly different minus signs. When you minus these two, you're going to get 0. You're on the right track. 3x squared minus 2x squared. And this is where a lot of people made a mistake. You will get 5x squared because a minus and a minus is a plus. Who joins the party now? Mr. minus 3x. 5x squared divided by x is positive 5x. So if you got this here, you're on the right track. So 5x by x is 5x squared. 5x by minus 1 is minus 5x. Put two distinctly different minus signs in between. Minus the first two, you're going to get 0. Minus 3x plus 5x, because two minus signs touch. Minus 3 plus 5 is 2x. Positive 2x, and then the minus 2 joins the party. 2x divided by x is obviously positive 2. Take the 2, multiply both of them. You get 2x minus 2, put a minus and a minus. And look, we got 0. If you got 6 down here by mistake, I believe that you forgot that the two minus signs will touch here to give you 5x squared. Then that is most likely where your mistake would have been. Now, remember, they're asking us, this time the instructions are different. They want us to solve the polynomial. When you solve a quadratic, you get 2 answers. But when you solve a quadratic, most of the times you get 3 answers. Our first answer, we guess it. To get the other 2 answers, you have to solve the quadratic on top. Remember, when you solve a quadratic, you get 2 answers. Those 2 answers plus this 1 answer will make it 3 answers. So everyone quickly solve this quadratic. Pull out the A, the B, and the C. Throw it. I would prefer if you just use the quadratic formula and get it over with, right? And get your other 2 answers and then add it in over here. X is equal to something and your second answer. So you have 3 answers in total, right? So I'm trying to work out the quadratic here, but you end up with minus 5 plus or minus 3, because when you square root the 9, you will get 3, and you divide it by 4. And remember, you always put the top in brackets when you're working it out on your calculator. So let's see what we'll get here. Minus 5 plus 3 divided by 4, I get minus 0.5, right? Or minus a half, however you want to write it. And the other one is minus 5 minus 3 divided by 4. And you will get what? Minus 2. Confirm these answers. The other 2 solutions are minus a half and minus 2. Let me see. I'm looking through everyone's answers here. Yep, a lot of people had those answers. And then I want to clear up a slight difference between, I'm going to clear up the difference between using the word solutions and the word factorizing. They're slightly different, they're related to each other. Take a minute to clear up any mistakes and then we will continue. Yeah? If they ask you to list the solutions, then you write it just like this, right? X is equal to 1, X is equal to minus 0.5, and X is equal to minus 2. Those are your 3 solutions. But if they ask you to factorize it, right? What you can do, right? You see your first solution, to factorize it, when you factorize it, you'll get 3 pairs of brackets, right? And there's a slightly different answers of how you can lay out the factorization. Whenever you factorize a quadratic, you're going to get 3 pairs of brackets like this. Put X in each one. And then in the brackets next to the X, you put the opposite of the solutions. So if one of these solutions is 1, you put minus 1. If one of them is minus 0.5, you make the other one positive 0.5. And if X is equal to minus 2, you make it what? Positive 2. If you were to factorize this expression, you would get these 3 pair of brackets. Now, here's the thing, right? Nobody whenever you're factorizing something, no examiner, sorry, I should say, no examiner likes a fraction in the brackets. He is fine. He is fine, but he is a problem. It's not a mathematical problem. It's just a visual problem. It just doesn't look nice. So what textbooks will do, they will refrain from putting a fraction in the brackets. And here's what they will do. And you're allowed to do this in maths. If there's a fraction, like, where do I have space? But I have some space here. You see how this is x plus 0.5? This is really a half, right? A 0.5 is really a half. What you do, you multiply every one by 2 because the denominator is 2. So 2 by x is 2x, and a half by 2, the 2's will cancel out to give you 1. And they would prefer to put 2x plus 1. 2x plus 1 is the same thing as x plus 0.5. Same exact thing. Right? But I'll let you know, if you put it like this in the exam, you will still get it correct. If you decide to make it look nicer without the fraction, you will still get it correct. But the difference is, don't mix up the factorization answer, which is the one with the brackets, and the solutions, which is just the numbers. We're going to try another example just now. Take a minute, take down anything you need. All right, so we're going to try to solve this polynomial, which means we have to guess a value of x that will make it equal to 0. So start with 1, then use -1. Then try 2 and then -2 and continue that pattern. Right. All right, so just for the recording purposes, we said that when we replace all the x's with 2, we got 0. So we are going to consider that to be one of the solutions. Let's divide it by its factor form, x minus 2. X squared, so you're going to get x cubed minus 2x squared. Minus 3, so you're going to get minus 1x squared here. Minus 1x here. With a minus and a minus, you get 0 here. Over here, you're going to get x minus 2x is minus 1x. The 2 comes down here. How much of you all could agree with that? That we got the remainder to be 0, but we're supposed to get 0 because we did say x equal to 2 is a solution. Solve this quadratic now. Remember, a would be 1 here. So a is 1, b is -1, and c is also -1. Now, in the exam, if you use the shortcut to solve the quadratic, obviously you're not going to get the marks for it, right? But it's a nice way to check your answers. So to do that, I only know how to do it on the sharp DAL calculators. You have to press the mode, and then you press 2. Mode and 2. Well, I guess it's not working on this calculator. Oh, sorry, guys. I have it on my calculator here now. So when we finally solve the quadratic, we got the other 2 answers. Now they ask us to do 2 things. Solve, which I did. And now it's time to do what? Factorize. So in factorization, you put the 3 pairs of brackets next to each other. You got some really nice values, so that's good news. You put x, x, and x. Then you put the opposite of it. So this one is +1, you put -1. If this one is positive 6, you put minus 6. And if this is minus 1, you put positive 1. Obviously, the order can be mixed up, doesn't really matter. All right, so we just have about 15 minutes. So I just want everyone to reach up to this point.